My name's Christopher Wayne. I do comedy. I'm from a show called The Naked Magicians.
My name is Stav Davidson. I'm from the Hit 105 Breakfast Show, and yeah.
Are you?
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. I'm not Kip from Nova. A lot of people get that wrong.
I am.
Yeah. I got into comedy for a lack of anything else to do. I entered into the Triple J Raw Comedy Competition 2 times before I actually got the balls up to go on stage. Like, I didn't even appear at the competition. And you got into comedy because I met you.
Actually, that's true. We met on a boat. I was a B105 listener. It was B105 at the time. I was just a magician, like a magician.
Yes.
And then I wanted to do comedy, and you gave me a book on stand-up comedy. And I'm like, oh, it's like magic, but you make jokes about your penis. And then, yeah, that's how it started.
My first gig was the Triple J Raw Comedy Competition at Sit Down, which was then at the Dockside. And I went into the Triple J Raw Comedy Competition, first time ever in a stand-up room, first time ever in front of a microphone, and this is why I like this story. Then I made it to the grand final in Melbourne at the Town Hall.
Did you have a joke that was like the joke, as in that you just knew was...
Can I tell you one joke that I never do again?
You worked at Subway at the time, right?
I did work at Subway at the time.
Right.
I did a joke where I went, because I was nervous, and I did a joke where I went, if I'm shaking, it's not because I'm nervous, it's just because I'm doing my Michael J. Fox impersonation.
That's too soon now.
I know, right?
Mine's so much. Boy, it was at the Gold Coast Arts Centre in is it the Comedy Basement?
Yes.
And I did...
Good room. Good room.
I had a character. It was a gay air hostess called...
Character.
That I came out to my parents in character shortly thereafter. Yeah, it was a gay airline host called Sergio. And people laughed.
I want to see... Can you remember Sergio? Can we do...
I did say I remember Sergio. Can you hold... No, I'll put my drink here. I remember because I had flown like twice back then, and I'm like... There's a way...
You've been on 2 flights, you're like, I got this nailed.
Wow. I'm a frequent flyer. I realized there was always one flamboyant male on every flight, no matter what. And my main gag...
Turns out it was you.
That's good, yeah.
Sorry.
This is the worst birthday I've ever had. It's happening right now.
Well, your dad's not here, so it's probably the same.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
All right, next question. This is the best. Yeah, do Sergio.
I can't...
Mr. Nason?
That's Andrew Nason.
So speaking of my dad, there he goes. Sergio, I had a joke about how he would get excited to do the emergency procedure thing, and he'd go in like the exit, so like here, and here, and he'd like turn it into a dance move, and that was Sergio.
Wow.
Look, it wasn't all A material. It was my first thing. We all couldn't have won Raw that year, all right?
That's true.
Yeah.
You can't. No one can be funny right out of the block.
That's the only time that going in Raw has ever worked out for you, right?
Not yet. For me, the best part about being a comedian is making people laugh. That's what I love about it. Is making people. There's nothing I love more than just that instant reaction of making people laugh. It doesn't happen ever, apart from that one time. But that was ironic.
I love that as well. It's a challenge making people laugh. And I like that the response is automatic and it's binary. You're either funny or you're not, and people either laugh or they don't. But there's really something special about a group of people in a room laughing at the same stuff. And I love the challenge of making that material and then hopefully getting people to laugh. Worst bombing stories. I was in Iraq
Hiroshima.
We'll take 2.
Worst bombing story was my second gig, and it was here at the Pato because my first gig went amazing, and then I'm like, I assumed I was really good at comedy straight away. And I'm like, oh, what I did the first time will just work every time. So I got on stage too confident with the exact same material to a different crowd. Yeah. And I will never forget that blistering sound of silence, except for the one... You know how comedians at gigs, they laugh louder than anyone else?
Yes.
Well, in the moment of the most silence, there was one comedian at the back, and I won't mention his name because it's not okay to bully, and he just laughed when my joke bombed. And I still remember that noise to this day.
I think my worst bombing moment was, there's been many.
Is it hard for you to choose?
It's hard for me to choose. There was one where there was a football game on. It was like, I don't think it was a grand final, but it was close. And they turned the TV off for me to do my set. And everyone there was there to watch the football and not me. And there's just no coming back from that. It doesn't matter. You could be, well, maybe Eddie Murphy could get away with it, but there was no coming back from that. All the TVs were turned off, and like midway through the game, like it was like halftime, and someone was leading, and it was not going to happen.
I just realised I had a dude have a heart attack just before my show started when the MC was on.
You just realised that?
I just remembered that.
I completely forgot. A guy died during one of my sets, and that's my worst bombing story. I completely forgot.
I thought I died on stage.
Hey.
Wait, but he literally like keeled over, and then there was like a 20-minute break while the ambulance took him away, and the MC gets back on stage. This is no joke. And goes, welcome to the stage, Christopher Wayne. Tough act to follow, your grandpa dying. It really is. Can you say Louis C.K. anymore, or will people tweet you? No, fuck it. Louis C.K., Bill Burr is amazing. David Chappelle is easily like the best comedian ever. Your wife is one of my favorite comedians to watch live. Kat Davidson is amazing. And Andrew Schultz, who was here at the Paddo recently from America, is just this I don't know if he's up and coming. He's big in the States and he's growing here. He's incredible. I really believe that the best comedians are the ones that take the toughest stuff and make it funny. Oh, and Anthony Jeselnik is at the top. Basically, I like white guys that talk about offensive shit. Yeah.
And my wife. Cool.
I do.
Stephen Wright, Jerry Seinfeld. Another one you can't say, but I will say anyway. Back in the day before everything came out, Bill Cosby, Eddie Murphy, and Kermit the Frog.
I've got a question for you, and this isn't a question you're asking, and I hope it's okay to ask. Can you separate the comedian, can you separate, the sins of the comedian from their act? Like Louis C.K., Bill Cosby?
Well, according to my lawyer, yes, you can. And I really, really hope that's true.
Like, I go back and...
No, completely. I like... Russell Crowe's a douche, but I still like his movies. Tom Cruise is a massive douche. I still like his films. I don't care what you've done. If your artistic output is fine, I'm still going to be able to enjoy that. Kevin Spacey is a great actor.
He's an amazing actor. And then I watched some of Louis C.K.'s older specials, and I don't, think what he did was okay. No. But then from a comedic point, I watch his specials, and I'm like, this guy was a comedic genius.
Yeah.
Might not get many gigs from now on, but that's okay. Oh, man, well, headlining in Vegas is obviously, a career highlight. It was a dream come true for me. And not just doing Vegas, but the night I got to have my parents in the audience, which is weird when you're a naked magician. But just... I've wanted to be a magician my whole life, and Vegas is kind of as far as you can go with it. And it was cool to have my parents there in the audience. Can I say that without sounding a douche? It's just a true story.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Interviewing Grover from Sesame Street.
What about when you got to interview Seinfeld? Like, that's the coolest.
Interviewing Grover from Sesame Street was the highlight of my career. And I went up to the Sesame Street people afterwards, and I don't even know why. Like, if I ever meet Kermit the Frog, I will just die. But I was in tears after interviewing Grover, and I went up to the Sesame Street people. I was like, oh, that was so good. You must get this a lot, right? This is like, you must. And they were like, no, not really. But it was a highlight. Muppets for me.
Okay, two things that I've noticed, especially, so I love going to watch comedy in Brisbane, and I see, actually three things. I think open micers are way more lazy than they used to be. Keep that in the video. I think there's so many amazing women coming up in comedy, which is great because when I first started doing it years ago, it was mostly males, but I've seen so many Brisbane up and coming women just absolutely destroy it. and then of course political correctness. People get offended so easily now by things that the exact same things that they weren't offended by even 5 years ago, and some comedians adjust to it, and some comedians run with it, and it's really interesting to see how people navigate that climate on either side of it, either by embracing it or by spitting in its face. So I think comedy's changed in those ways, and I'm really nervous about that answer going online.
Are you saying there's climate change in comedy?
This climate, yeah, everyone's offended by everything.
Comedy hasn't changed at all. Everyone's doing what they were always doing. What has changed is the audience's reaction to it.
For the better or worse?
That remains to be seen.
Do you want to go first, or?
Advice to open micers? Treat it as a job. I was always of the opinion it's a career and it's a trade. It's a trade. If you were going to be a carpenter, then you would rock up at the time that they tell you to rock up at, and you would do the trade, and you would listen to the people that have been doing that trade for a long time, and you would learn from them. Don't think it's a hobby. Don't think it's a thing that maybe you can do. If you really want to do it, treat it as a career and take it seriously, would be my advice.
I gotta agree with you there, man. Like, turn up to the gigs that you booked for on time. I know in Brisbane, so many comedians would do anything to get an open mic spot, and then there's so many comedians that pull out at the last minute or are turning up late.
That's either in comedy or just in life in general. They do tend to pull out early, in my experience.
In your experience?
Yeah. It's so disappointing. After I've told them like a million times.
And stop writing your shit down on your wrist or on your phone.
Yes.
Like, memorize it beforehand. Practice it in front of a mirror.
An audience can tell that, or that, or
Or
that.
this, or this.
It's the first time you've ever said it, every time. It's the first time you've ever said it, every time.
So many people are going to dislike this video, but it's the truth.
No one's ever going to see this video.
Do you know what's really special for me? I realized we went and watched some open mic.
He stopped recording like 20 minutes ago.
Is there a camera here? Fuck. I went and watched some open mic stuff this week, and I realized, and the comedians were getting up there, and they were like, one comedian ended his set. He sort of wasn't doing well, and at 3.5 minutes, he's like, "What should I talk about?" And then he said, "Does anyone in the audience have any jokes?"
Wow.
And I was really disappointed by that, because like 5 minutes is a really special amount of time, and it's a challenge to nail that 5. And back when I got started, I remember I was lucky enough to work with people like Matt O'Kine and Josh Thomas, who were Brisbane guys. And these guys would rock up, and they knew what they were going to try inside out. And then every week they would shine that car and polish that car. And I wish that there was more of that happening now.
That being said, I used to get up at the Holland Park Hotel way back in the day with the newspaper. Some of the funnest times I've ever had with the newspaper, and just point at a story and then riff off that story. So there is that as well. Don't be afraid to riff. Don't be afraid to do new stuff that might not work just because you won't get a gig the next time as well. You know.
I think being willing to fail is a huge part of being a comedian, right?
Yes, or a human, really. Yeah.
Oh yeah, deep. Thanks for listening to our TED Talk.
We're doing a roast.
We're bringing roast to Australia, which is kind of cool.
I actually think it's going to be my niche. I want to be the new roast guy, because I in the radio show I have to hold myself back a lot. But if you got a lot of my off-air files, I'm really, really terrible and awful in my comedy, and I love that about it. I love being awful in comedy but getting a laugh out of people, and especially shocking people with getting a laugh. So if I could be the next Jeff, whatever his name is, Jeff Ross, I could see that. I'm really interested in playing in that sort of arena.
I love that, because I think in Australia for comedy, like, roasts haven't become a thing, but it's literally how Australians show affection for one another, is by roasting one another, taking the piss out of one another. So I think it has potential to become something, and I think you might be one of the funniest, meanest people I've ever met. So you could be.
That's the most I've ever heard him say without a dick in his mouth.
I think Jeff Ross's dad goes to his gigs, though.
Well, my dad is dead, so that's not going to happen. But if he wasn't dead, he probably still wouldn't come to my gigs.
Yeah, it's true.
I really can't wait. Okay, so this is our 45 seconds to plug everything. I'm gonna go ass, mouth, ear in a pinch.
Instagram is CW Magic. What's your Instagram?
Twins.
That's a weird Instagram.
Look, hey, newborns. That was too far.
And well, the show we're doing together, and we don't really do shows together, is the Australian Celebrity Roast of Stav, which is going to be at the Powerhouse on December 1st. You are the guest of honor. You're going to get roasted by your wife, Kat Davidson, by me, by Mark McConville, by Mel Buttle, by Maddie Acton, and by Lindsay Webb.
Lindsay Webb is the funniest comedian you've never heard of.
Who's Lindsay Webb?
It just got really serious.
It did. How did the Santa audition go?
Oh, wow.
What did Maya Santa say? Nice?
He can't talk about it. It's an ongoing court case.